Welcome everyone. Today we have Lira joining us. Lira is a courageous survivor of mind control, and we heard from her previously in a very powerful expose of how institutions like hospitals are used in programming children. And Lira's testimony last time really detailed just how multidimensional this programming is, how very powerful and highly intelligent demonic principalities are used to set up mind control and demonic gifts. So if you haven't seen her first testimony, it's available on YouTube. And I think it would be a really good place to start, as it will give a good overview of Lira's background. And in short, she was taken into a detox program as a child due to the radiation after the Chernobyl disaster. And during this time, she was involved in a very intense and highly technical mind control programming operation to create psychic super soldiers from children. And she was only 6 years old. And I think one of the most astounding things about Lira's story was just how much programming they can do in just a couple of weeks. And to think, this was several decades ago. Imagine how that is today. And I was actually sharing an article just this week about hypnosis, and even from World War II, they were finding that they really only needed about 10 hours to set up enough dissociation and programming in an individual to get them basically to be able to do a job that they wouldn't remember. So imagine with the technology today where that is at. So today we are going to be hearing from Lira about hybrids and chimeras, about super soldiers, cyborgs, and programming. And she's going to be going through some of her deliverance experiences, and also just through some of the missions that her parts were set up to perform for the kingdom of darkness. And I thank Lira so much for courageously sharing both her testimony, and it really is her story of healing with Jesus, because this knowledge and just these topics are so very important to be discussed at this time, because we really need to be aware that the end goal of this mind control programming is about the rising antichrist system. And it's so important, as survivors and for all of us in our communities, that we really understand the spiritual war that we're in, and that we start claiming victory through Jesus and taking back our bloodlines, taking back our minds and our lives. And I just think Lira is such an incredible example of just the power of deliverance, the power that we have with Jesus to set ourselves free. And I've had so many survivors just feel compelled to reach out after hearing your testimony, Lira, and say, I'm so inspired now to go and do deeper layers of deliverance. So how cool is that? So welcome back.
Thank you. Thank you. All right, you guys, my power is off. Gabby's power was off earlier. My power is off now.
They didn't want us to do this, but we're going to make it happen. We've just been praying to keep things up.
Correct. All right. Thank you, by the way, everybody, for being so patient with my other video. I know it was quite lengthy. It took 3 years plus. Okay. Hopefully it won't take you guys as long. You will know all the shortcuts.
Isn't that so true, though? By you sharing your story, imagine the time that survivors today can skip, because so much of my own healing journey was just trying to find the right prayers, to find deliverance really took me years. I wish I found that at the beginning. I'd be a couple of years ahead now. So
me too. As I was doing this outline, this last leg of my healing journey, documenting things, I finally found the actual programming, the theta, the beta, the zeta, the delta, which I didn't know. And I just now correlated everything with the demonic powers that they've attached to me. Like, oh no, each code is a program indeed. And they didn't get a chance to do, definitely, they didn't do one of them, and perhaps two of them, because my dad kidnapped me. So I have been blessed a great deal. But I'll tell you how much they did with the other 5, 6. Enough. So I will also discuss talk about the tares specifically today, because Jesus warns us that the enemy sows the tares, and the tares are weeds. They look like wheat, but they're not. There's an image there. They look so much alike, wheat and the tare. And what the weeds do, the tares do, they wrap up their roots around the wheat so the wheat doesn't grow as well. And I will show you some of the how some of these parts, avatars or agents, operatives, how they steal that from us, how they indeed choke us, at least up here. It's just evil. And then we did talk about essence last time. We did talk about the how God, Jesus, during the healing journey, he will take that part that they stole, this the soul part or the essence part, and how he just takes it through the Heavenly Father's throne room, cleanses it, empowers it, and then adds it back to us. So there's an image there of Jesus holding the soul, this is the way I saw it, guys, okay? And the soul part was just glowing with energy, almost lightning coming out of it. But then the essence was just it was more fluid, it was more gentle, if you will. And for some reason I correlated just a little bit. Um, soul part would be like your DNA, and then the essence would be like the stem cells. You need both. It basically, so anyhow, there's that. All right, so I wanted to read these verses with the tares when it comes to the tares, because this is now we're talking about the end days. This is happening now. The tares are real. The enemy has been sowing the seeds. They have been stealing the seed from me, right? So Matthew 13, 37 through 43, it says, he who sows the seed, the good seed, is the Son of Man. The field is the world. The good seeds are the sons of the kingdom, but the tares are the sons of the wicked one. In Daniel, it says they will mingle with the seed of men, but they will not adhere to one another, just as iron does not mix well with the clay. Like we all know this, but their end game is not going to be all that. And then another verse I wanted to bring up in Genesis 3:15, and this is God talking to the serpent and to the woman. And he said, I will put enmity between you, the serpent, and the woman, and between your seed and her seed. He shall bruise your head, and you shall bruise his heel. And he says the heel, not the tail. I know that God said you're going to, as a punishment, he was going to be slithering on his belly, but in reality, like his seed, the other entities, deities, they do have feet. Just wanted to point that out. Okay. All right. So we also need to cover the avatars, the operators, that they're not just a program. It feels like you're in a video game. Okay. It feels like you look at somebody playing a video game, they're all sweating, they're hitting everything, screaming. This is you. That is how it feels. It feels like you're in a video game and you're just playing different parts. You go into this dreamy fantasy moments in your day because your parts are activated. My nose would begin to bleed just in the middle of the classroom because I've been doing something. One of my operatives would be doing something. I have to say thank you to Annie, a friend of ours. She pointed out to my husband that we really need to watch the Stranger Things series, which when I saw the trailer, I'm like, I am not going to watch it. Everything in there is triggering me. But within the first few scenes, or not even seasons, the first few shows, it showed everything that I've gone through. It showed the girl when she would kill the guys, her nose would begin to bleed. I'm like, yep, totally right on. How they grabbed her by the elbows and dragged her through the hallway with all the tiles, but not dressed. Exactly that. How she saw a cat and it triggered her. She remembered that sitting in front of the cat and reading their frequencies. I'm like, that's exactly what I did in Area 51, which I'll talk about later. Just reading the frequency so we can understand And I will tell you what they did in those series, why she was reading the frequencies of that cat. And they would make the cat very angry. So she needed those high, high frequencies. Um, it's evil
Wow.
things that they do with it. It's horrific. So we'll go into that. But let me tell you about what's going on with the science. And again, this is old, you guys, old technology. In 23, scientists created synthetic embryos out of stem cells. So again, going back to the tears, they're going to look like human, but there's no humanity to them. So they need our DNA. Okay. And the stem cells, it can be in our hair. So just like they cut my hair off to power those terminators, it's the hair has your essence. The hair has according to Jesus, it has essence. According to what the scientists are saying, it's the stem cells. That's what they're doing, creating embryos. And of course, there's the chip implant. So let me read this. Chip implants that manipulates your consciousness and behavior through a signal. The signal frequencies can secrete nanobots into your bloodstream, making you obey the controller and even cause the disease and death. So even if you think you got from the hokey pokey, if you didn't take it, the nanos which were in there, the nanos are still over your fresh produce. They will spray it everywhere. The nanos are in you. So if we do not walk with God continuously, having that glory push out those nanites and keeping them at bay, you're going to be affected without a choice. Okay.
Absolutely.
I did throw some pictures in there. There's some images of a hand, a robotic hand, how it can hold things. I'm just trying to show you guys the technology that is there. We're just not using it every day, but it is totally available. Okay. So with the amputees, I mean, people who lost their limbs in the war, I'm talking about the super soldiers later. We understand with the implants that they have, the different robotic limbs that they have, prosthesis. They put a chip in you, you can move your limbs with your thinking, with your brain. All right. And then I have a picture in there with a hand, it's a darker hand, and it looks very, very realistic. The technology that they got to the point where the synthetic skin looks ridiculously real. So it's easy for them to make. They are producing them. They're producing robots that look like a lot like humans. In fact, there's a sex bot who gets rented out in one of the brothels. She looks terrific. That's all what I can say. There's a picture of that too.
Wow.
She's horrific. So with the super soldiers, I do have pictures about that. They did throw in the super soldier part. That was one of the last things that came out of me. And as I was praying for everything to be out of me, I began to hurt really, really bad. My shoulder was stiff, my neck couldn't move, and I'm saying, Jesus, man, I'm in such great pain. And I see this thin copper tubing that was going from my head down my neck and out into my arm. And Jesus was saying, just wait, just wait. And then I began seeing living letters in this tubing. The letters that his name is written out of. Just they're like weapons, glorious letters. And then he's like, keep waiting, keep waiting. And then he takes me to a facility, huge, huge facility with a ton of super soldiers and cyborgs.
Wow.
And like we're all connected to them, like the parts that they've stolen from us, those soul parts, the essence that they've written to the programs, they're ready to be inserted into those super soldiers.
Wow.
There is an image farther down that I have in Berlin. There's the famous wall in Berlin, and there's a huge plaza in front of it. And it's thanks to you, thanks to one of your videos, Gabby. You had a guest on there who simply mentioned the word programs in Berlin, and my right ear began to ring really, really bad. It has always been my left ear, but this time, and I took care of it. I knew that the sleeper soldier was connected to my left ear. Done, good. All of a sudden, in 4 years, it was my right ear when she said it. All she did, she simply dropped the word Berlin and the Antichrist army. And I was in such pain. I turned the video off. I'm like, okay, Jesus,
What's
what
going
is
on?
this? I cannot physically take it. And he took me to that plaza and he showed me the full whole plaza, huge plaza, full of soldiers, his future army. It just it was a portion of his military. And there was two to three of me that was in my teens, late teens, and there was a couple parts, and there were boys and girls, males and females, and then a couple parts that were children. They were like the runners for the military. But so several parts of mine were created for Antichrist army,
And
like
so
that.
I just want to like clarify that as well, because I think this is like so important for all of us to understand, especially survivors. Is so Lyra is literally saying, like, from the mind control program that she went through, it's not just one member of the Antichrist army, that those soul splits, that essence that has been stolen, can be used to power up like multiple different hybrids, different cyborgs, different things in their army. Like, and this is just goes to show it's so important, this work that we're doing now of deliverance and reintegration, because we are pulling apart this army right now.
Yes, guys, that's it. That's it. That's what we want. That's what we want. And immediately I said, because by then I knew the power of Jesus and how he works. I'm like, Jesus, what are we going to do about this? And he takes this a rod of iron, right? And he puts it in the middle, and all the soul parts come out. The essence has come out of those soldiers so much. The entire plaza was filled with them. Take it to heaven and then return to other people. It was
Amen.
beautiful. And it was quick. It was quick. I went back to watching your video. That's how quick it was.
Yeah.
A few minutes, several minutes, a few minutes for me to process it.
How
But Jesus,
incredible that
if you
you had
want,
that
if you have the
conscious
desire,
experience. That's so awesome. Like, of actually seeing all those soul parts be set free. And I feel like Jesus and his angelic army are very, very busy at this time doing big groups of soul captures and big, I don't know what you call it, regiments of the army, of the Antichrist army. They're just getting pulled apart, which is awesome.
yes. And
Mm.
okay, I'll bring up another part with the angels since you brought that up. One of the last things that happened to me was about a year ago. I did not pray. Sometimes I will not pray. I will not cover myself with Jesus' blood, anoint myself because I want to fish out some of those parts. As we know, uh, the system is going to follow the Bible, the blueprint. In the Bible, Abraham brought God the Father, the great I am, a, a sacrifice. And then God put him into deep sleep. And then he made a covenant with him. You're going to have this many children. That's happened to this day. All of us are part of that covenant that happened while he was sleeping. So we must pay attention to our dreams. They
Absolutely.
are using us at nighttime. They are making these treaties, covenants with us at nighttime. Like if you take a drink with something or eat or have sex with them, it's a treaty, it's a covenant that you're doing. When you wake up, do something about it, break it.
Totally. Yeah. That's such a good point, Lyra, is just being really aware of our dreams, because they are a window to what's happening subconsciously, and programming takes place in our subconscious mind. So yeah, like you said, if you have a dream where you are eating or drinking, or someone gives you something in the dream, like, you've got to presume it's a demonic covenant of some sort, and pray to break it all.
Yep. I pray in the mornings and at night, except for when I was fishing things out. So this time I didn't. And I ended up in a dream was by Mesa by Dulce, New Mexico. It was exactly that. But I was raped by a great deal of men there. And they were all like chiefs and generals from different generations. It wasn't just this period. It goes back to, oh yeah, I'll be talking about going back and forth in time. So they were all around, and I saw the Dulce facility there. I saw the cages with the various creatures on 2 feet tall. it was gross in there, the screams. And then that was it. I woke up, I knew something horrific taking place. I could not walk in the morning physically. It would hurt in the hips. And then physically, I also got a big bump above my right knee, which I still have a little bit of it.
Wow.
Something was inserted to me at nighttime. Clearly, I was feeling the physical pain in the hip area. And I'm like, what happened? Show me what happened. And Jesus. So when I started taking care of that part, it ended up that I'm an operative in the Israeli army. And I do have a group there who's working with me. I'm like the captain there. And I wanted, like I said, okay, Jesus, what are we doing? And he showed me one of the missions that we were on. We were going into underground lab facilities and we were dragging out some of the scientists so they can bring that technology that they've been doing under the ground for so long up finally, open it up to the people. And this one gentleman, older gentleman scientist, he's like, I'm not coming. I've seen this technology used for the evil. You guys don't need it. I would rather die here with it. But we were told to bring it out. So I'm like, Jesus, okay, I don't want this part. Let's take care of it. Just gone. And Jesus's proposition was, okay, how about if you have my angels work with you? They're going to take on man's form, shape, transform into men, and they're going to be working right on your team, doing the right thing at the right time with the right people for the right country. Basically, I'm like, okay, I'm going to trust you and the angels to guide me through these missions. So I left that part.
Wow.
But it's the angels, like they're working full time, overtime right now.
Absolutely.
Okay, so we understand the super soldier. Going back to the super soldiers, there are some images with the limbs, how they start attaching things. And you guys did, I hope you understand how the modification, it gives them great advantages. Okay. I do acknowledge that countries are doing this, and every country has no choice but to jump on it. So when they have even a soldier that's not quite dead, or his head is gone, they can easily take the program that they've written for us, those for that part that they've stolen from us, and insert it into that super soldier. So don't be surprised to find your parts in a manly body. You're a female. It's okay.
Wow.
Have God take it out. It's all right.
Don't be too shocked.
Correct. Yep. It's just they're gonna do evil because they can. All right. Then there's also the GM babies, the genetically modified babies, or CRISPR. All right. They created with modified DNA. And I mentioned this last time that you can connect whatever DNA you want to them. Um, one of my parts was a scientist in Switzerland, and she worked with children. Like I said, God would not reveal to me what I did because it was so brutal and evil. So they've got that going on. I did have some children that were like that they messed with. And one of them was she worked in Kremlin. So this operator of mine, she was somewhat human, okay? And her job was to take somebody to calm someone down. She was a soothsayer, tell them the future. Well, in this particular part, there was a businessman, a scientist who came to Kremlin, and he knew that Kremlin wanted him to not talk about this designer babies available technology for the public. They wanted to shut him up so that he knew that he was going to die. What he did was, oh, and that was given to him to sleep and so on. Okay, I was operative. And he knew that. And he was kind of like an architect for the Moscow's facility, underground facility, which I've seen where with all the kids are, where all the DNA is stored. Everything's available to him. to create whatever he wanted to create. He
Wow.
just wanted it out for people to know what they had. He knew that they were going to kill him. He knew that I was going to kill him. So he took my eggs, which they've taken from me in the hospital. He took his sperm. He created a baby, and he had one of his co-workers tell him, once I'm dead, you take my conscience out and you put it into this child, into this baby. That's what happened. So I choke him in the middle of the night. Whenever they told me to kill him, I choke him with like a hair ribbon, white one in the middle of the night. That's it. But then the next thing that I see is there is a child growing. It's a girl, and he had his coworker take him, her. It was our child, okay, but with his conscience. And he had his grandmother bring up this child, basically bring him up. Then when the child grew up, that is when, again, he was talking through the child. He was living through this child, through his daughter and my daughter physically. And that's when he started a company of doing the designer babies. And then after that, they moved it from Moscow to another location, which I won't say, in Russia, more south. And then it just kept going. It grew, and they're selling those babies to the oligarchs. It's a very well-off company. And she has a son now, Dima. He's about 7. So look, I have a grandson. It's just so bizarre, the things that God shows you and tells you you can never fathom until you've gone through the parts, and then slowly this was one of the later parts that he showed me, by the way. Okay.
Say that for later.
All right.
It's
So
so
let's talk
interesting
about
about the transferring consciousness as well, because some people might be like, oh, that's, that's way beyond the technology that we have. But, the cults have been doing this spiritually for a long time as well. So they'll transfer it down like as an ancestral spirit, like through demons and principalities down bloodlines. And it's just technology's catching up. Like they're finding ways to do this with technology, as Lyra's describing now too. So they have been able to move at least parts of someone's consciousness down bloodlines for a very, very long time.
Yep. Believe it, guys. Please. Let me, since I'm diving into some of my parts, let me just read some of the programs, which, like I said, I just recently found out. Just little outline of one-liners. They are programs that have been written with the codes, of course, as you know, with letters, numbers, and they can have 2 to 3 of them, for what I understand, in one operative, in one pair, one soldier, whatever. So we've got the epsilon. This is non-human alters that can take on positive, negative, or neutral forms, such as fairies, jams, stones, demons, zombies, mermaids. It will get to my mermaid in a little bit. Okay. Like lyken and mermaid, that would be my epsilon program. Definitely have that one. Gamma, another program to deceive yourself so you don't remember. Now, this one,
the denial programming.
yep, I thank God, this was before I knew that there's such thing as detaching yourself from all these programs. This was a few years prior to that. I had a dream, and in it was Leviathan, long dream. But in the morning, I get up, and like I asked the Lord, what is that? And he said, open to Job. He points to Leviathan. At Leviathan, it was the pride for everything. And he had 7 heads. 7 heads, guys. Don't forget that. Yeah, and same like with the demons. You clean your house, 7 stronger ones come in. You got to remember that they all have, a lot of them have more than just one head. So, and I was so terrified. I'm like, I need the entire team that I'm on, the deliverance team, like all the higher guys who've done this forever. Like, this is serious and big. And she just sits me down in the kitchen early in the morning. She's like, you got this. I pray and it crawls out of me.
Wow. Fantastic.
That was the first time when I understood, you pray, you believe, and it's done.
Absolutely.
And I think if it wasn't for this part leaving me first, since it was about pride, I wouldn't be able to. So it's not so easily, okay? But I, I would have a harder time admitting to myself, yes, I have to deal with this and this and this. Because there was one part, the suits there, one of my end parts, last parts. I'm like, yeah, I have it. I don't want to give it up, you know.
What is
But
it? What is a
one,
soothsayer? I haven't really heard of that term
oh,
before.
okay. She was mentioned, it was a young lady mentioned in Acts in the Bible, and she was the one who always had businessmen around her because she would predict their future,
Oh,
what
she's the
they should buy and what they should
divination.
sell.
That's right. Yes.
It,
Yeah. Yeah.
it,
And I believe
yeah.
that was a snake spirit in her as well, wasn't it? It's
Oh
interesting.
my goodness, baby. Yes. A python. Oh, we'll get
Yeah.
to those too.
There you go.
That one was that one, you know what, since we're talking about, I'll mention that one. That was the clones. Oh, let me read about the clones first, and then I'll get to my clones.
Awesome.
Okay. All right. So, clone is a biological duplicate without human DNA, with transferred memories, programmed speech patterns, and mannerisms. Clones can have cybernetics technology. They do not have to be an exact match, and that I've learned. I have many, many clones, and they're like, yes, that's totally me, but not quite. Just keep that in mind. And they're unable to reproduce, thank God. And clones are correct hairs. Clones are pure hairs.
They don't
They're
they
going to be
don't
burned
have
at
that
the
breath
end.
of God in there, right? So yeah.
Yep. And clones are docile, submissive, ready to accept control or instructions.
Yeah.
The sucky part. So with this particular time, and I had a hard time, by the way, guys, wrapping my brain around clones. I would listen to videos, watch everything. I understand science, and it was still hard for me to believe. But reading about the tares in the Bible, we have to acknowledge if we're going to believe the entire Bible, we cannot overlook this passage. The tares are here. Satan has been doing this forever.
Mm,
He's still doing it, and it ain't gonna stop. And we'll be seeing them eventually. We're seeing them on TV. They all look perfect, and we want to look perfect because of them. They're totally messing with our heads.
yes.
They're doing exactly that, wrapping their roots around us, the wheat, which is supposed to be blossoming good, but they're messing with us. Be
So
careful and
so
do
true
acknowledge
what you're
them.
saying. Like you think how many people that are presented to us on public platforms are Nephilim, are hybrids of some sort. And this is being portrayed in pop culture as beauty and something to aspire to, as celebrities, as our top sports people, for example. And humans are starting to aspire towards being a hybrid, and we're being tricked. So, it's really important to be aware of, like you said, that there are tares out there. There are completely non-human, what you call them, man-made and demon-made creations walking the earth at this time.
And it's definitely something that our children will be seeing, our grandchildren will be seeing. I'm sorry. Um, we need to be able to explain to them why it is not right for you to be hanging around them or looking like them, or it goes as looking like perfect, the perfection, because they do have that perfect skin. They're not human. Westworld shows it well how they're creating them. I really liked it. Okay, but I will continue reading the programs, and then I will go into the clones. Okay.
Awesome.
All right. Okay. Omega, let's see. Omega, self-destruction, right? No, I read Gamma, the deceiving one. And Omega, the self-destruct sequence that can get activated when you're crossing the lines or you know too much. That happened to me about 3 times. That's very important to them. They want to keep you in the loop. Cuckoo. The theta, I don't know how to pronounce it. Theta.
I think theta. Yeah, generally.
Okay. where spiritual altars are kept, such as psychic abilities, and can give people heart attacks. I had 4 heart attacks, and I have those, the psychic abilities and the bloody noses. Yeah, you control people. Okay, that's in me. Beta, to manipulate and control person. One of the first programs to be put into a child. And this is how they become the perpetrator and the handler. So when I did the show last time and I was talking about controlling the boy with my mind, this is beta. This is wicked. They turn you basically into a witch, controlling somebody as your child, one of the first things. So they can count on you being the perpetrator or the handler.
And it's so sad because it's because those parts have been through such horrific abuse, torture, betrayal, and abandonment and rejection. They're so angry, and they don't have a normal life. They don't have access to, very, very many resources. Those parts are tricked by the enemy into performing, these horrific roles of causing damage to others, or being an abuser, or, being an assassin part, being trained as that, because being a killer, because they're so angry at what's being done to them, and they're really just, once you deliver them, get rid of everything and renounce it, they're little children that have just been so badly broken.
Yes, it's exactly it. It's just awful. Okay. Like I said, I did have that one because a lot of well, we'll get to it later. And then the Delta, so you can imagine Delta would be the combat fighters, the assassins, the soldiers, the technology controls them with triggers. So I'm not sure about this one, whether it was in me, but that sleeper soldier and some of the other parts makes me think it was me that they got to that. But I know that the next one, Zeta, they definitely did not. They didn't have the time before my dad took me out. So the Zeta one is the persecutors, the one who persecute you. All the fight, harass, backguards, negative programming from birth, multi-generational, incestuous. They're taught that they're evil. It is used to close the program, from what I understand. And I know you've seen a lot of that. We see it just about everyone. That's a hard one.
Yeah, definitely.
And I was blessed not to have like.
Yeah, and it can be really perceived, those programs like the Zeta, as self-sabotage and just negative self-talk, etc. And obviously that's when people are sleepers, when they're not aware of survivors. And then once survivors realize and begin healing, just to actually see what's been installed, as programs in there. And it can be things like cutting would come under that, bulimia, like issues with food, over exercising, perfectionism. And look, there's a bit of crossover as well. Like you were mentioning how with the Delta, it's assassins, and that's absolutely, yeah, your super soldiers. But then you can also have some assassin parts in Beta, so they can be like they're not like totally separate. Do you know what I mean? These parts, you can have a part that's programmed in 2 different areas, etc. as well. But yeah, no, that was great. Thank you for giving us that overview. I think it's really, really important for survivors to have, a good understanding of how our systems, are generally set up, because they are all different, yes, but there are a lot of similarities. And if you're more aware of what you might find in there when it comes up, I think it's not such a shock, and you can just get through it, get it healed, get it delivered.
Yeah, so there's one more part which I had a ton of. The way God was showing me all this, he was showing me the principalities from Greece, from the Mediterranean Sea, going up through these black tunnels, through the Mara Sea, the Black Sea, and then up towards we live in Russia, Ukraine. But I was seeing these Mediterranean gods from way back then, of the mythology. And I found it interesting. I do have an image there of the Greek alphabet, and I find it interesting that all of these programs have the Greek letter, and I saw the Greek entities, not entities. What are they called? Four.
Principalities, right? Like
Principalities. Thank you.
the Greek, well, we're kind of talking like Greek fallen angels. And obviously the Greek
Yes.
fallen angels became the Roman fallen angels, and then we see them all over the world. So they were just the original landing spot.
Exactly. Thank you. All right. So the one that I did have big time was chi, and it's letter X in the Greek alphabet. And that one, I hate it. Sleep deprivation program, which I know every survivor has it. Like, I think I'll be catching up on sleep for the rest of my life. Okay. And it
That's
was
how I
used.
feel too.
That's the first thing. I'm like, sleep. Yes. Because they use you so much at nighttime. So I'm just like, yeah, I went to sleep. What you do? I'm more tired today now than I was, when I went to bed.
Exactly.
Chi. So it is used for viewing and gaining accurate information with intelligence from a clone. I'll get to that later. They have heightened sensitivities that enable them to read, understand, and interpret invisible events, people, and circumstances. They operate best when given full freedom and ease of movement, daydreaming a little bit. They can discern things energetically. And this was the Eye of Egypt. This was the great python. Um, Let me mention this one now, this deliverance that I went. It was quite memorable. There's also, I have a little image of here. There's a Python is commonly used for developing websites and software. I don't know if you ever come across it. It's called Python.
Really?
So it's all about,
Wow.
yep,
Mind control, right?
the energies. Yep, named Python. So the way my Python came out, the Egyptian programming that was there, I went to a prayer meeting, whatever, everything was good. At the end, the speaker comes up and he says, God wants you to have new wisdom, new knowledge.
Yeah.
And he prayed over me, and immediately something flipped in me. I turned pale green, dropped to the floor, like slithered to the floor. I'm sitting against the wall, so pale that they bring me a trash can to throw up into. And I was going to puke into it, but there's a huge python staring at me. And like he
Oh,
won't take his eyes from me. Like his eye is as big, one eye is as big as my head. And he's just like looking at me like, when can I get back into you? I'm gonna get back into you. And like, no, you are not. And
no.
I'm so deathly sick with my gut because it just came out. Just everything flipped. And I knew that there were people standing behind me. They were praying. I knew that Jesus was standing in front of me, right to the side of me, but that thing wasn't leaving. I mean, it left me, but it was standing right in front of me like that for a long time. I was too afraid to puke in the trash can because, like, what if it's not gonna get me? Um, and then, we were praying. I tried praying. Jesus's rod of iron came out, and he just
Wow.
went through it, and it just dissipated all over.
Incredible.
That thing
Wow.
was on me for so freaking long, and it was so heavy and so big, so powerful. And that's the thing that was giving me a lot of knowledge and a lot of insight knowledge. It was that one part. Later on, God had me renew my eyes, give me clean eyes, his eyes, basically, because I had previous ones for Medusa. Or, you stare at somebody, everybody would say that, Lira, you've got that stare, you got that look, deathly look, deadly look. Yeah, it was from Medusa, which that also had to go. And I'll get to that in a little bit. But so that was the Python spirit.
What an
Let me get
incredible
back to the clones.
deliverance.
Another,
That's amazing. I
I
bet
was
I
so
bet you
happy.
felt so much lighter, isn't it? Like, I remember when I was delivered from Leviathan too, and it was just like this huge entity coming out of, like, it felt like every area of my body. And I was just like, afterwards, I was like, I feel so empty. Like, I feel so light. Amazing.
So
Like,
let's talk about that.
how has it been
Yeah,
stuck
you have to
with you
feel
for
that.
so long?
You have to, sorry, you have
No,
to
no.
fill that empty space with God's glory, like
Yeah.
immediately. You don't want anything else to come in and take over. You don't want to spend the time wondering, like, well, what am I going to do without it? How am I going to function? No, hurry up every day, every hour. Keep filling it in with God's glory, his knowledge, his songs, his verses continuously,
Amen.
because there's a battle
Amen.
that's going to come afterwards.
That's it. And these evil principalities have just been draining our life force and ruining like our lives, for not just our lives, but our ancestors as well. Like, just kick them out. Get them out now. Like, just it's the best thing, just to move them on and really set our
Yeah,
minds free.
I, I did that, taking care of the genealogy, the lines. I saw when I was cleansing the timelines for my children, grandchildren, and their children. I saw some entities in the second heaven that didn't even take their form, their shape yet. They were like ready, whatever you were going to agree with, that's when they were going to take on that shape. But
Oh,
they were already there because of what has been spoken in the past. It's like people already, the predecessors are already, oh, got power on, yes.
yeah, you've got
Power
light.
came back on.
Woo-hoo, we're back.
Thank you, Jesus. Yep. So anyhow, what you say over your family matters because they're ready, waiting, and ready to go to start manifesting around your children and grandchildren. Saw that. Okay. The other thing that's the clones, right? So this was again another meeting, prayer meeting. Same gentleman, Josh and Sky. If you guys are watching, thank you. Afterwards, they came up to me and they said, "You are that soothsayer." In the Bible, it said that maiden helps the businessman who predicts the future, divinates.
Yeah.
And he's like, "We're gonna lay you down gently on the floor." I'm like, "I don't need to lay down. I'm fine. I've never went down. Just I don't need to lay down." They're like, "Just trust us. We're just gonna lay you down gently." I'm like, fine. Clearly, I'm not gonna get them off my back. So they lay me down, and they began to pray. And my mentor and then another John Dick and Beverly Q, thank you. They came up and they started praying over me. And as they're praying, you will see some images, Gabby. There's some of cages. You will see some ugly general, some images, and then you will see some men, women too. They are praying, and all of a sudden I'm seeing cages. I am in a dungeon. It's somewhere in Moscow. Dungeon, three cages hanging from the dungeon, from the ceiling, and I'm buck naked. They're identical clones of me in my early 20s, identical. And they all have like a marker on the thigh bone, on the hip bone, like blue, green, or red. So if you had the underwear on, you couldn't see them. But from a distance, as you're picking out your clone, it's like, oh, I want the green one has this much programming, this many abilities. So you could see whoever is buying or renting them. I did have one bought, but whoever is buying them would see from a distance, okay, I want that clone because that clone has this much, she can foretell so much. She can help me with this business this much just from this marker alone. So I'm seeing myself hanging there, holding on. Every one of them is looking at each other. They know that they're clones. They know they look alike. And they're looking at the businessmen who are all around. And they're standing like this, like with their arms folded. Like, what are we going to do now? And there's about 24 of them, a great deal of them who are just standing like they're, hey, that's, yeah, like that this is three clones who are not going to help them now with their business, and then like they're disappointed, like just wondering what they were going to do. And as they're praying over me, I'm seeing this. Now I have this great big general, demonic general, who's got his claws in me. He's clawing out my organs. I'm feeling it. Organs are in me, but I'm feeling like he's clawing out my organs one at a time, yanking them out. And now in the spine, now he's just going with his claws in my back, the back of me. And I'm almost screaming now, like, keep praying, keep praying. And they're praying, nothing's happening. And then Bev Q, she's got a word from the Lord. She's like, it's your bracelet. And I love cuff bracelets. And my husband knows I can't have just one cuff bracelet. I need two of them. It literally represented me being cuffed into that part, into those
Wow.
clones. system. And she had a hard time taking it off. I helped her. As soon as we took the cuff bracelet off, everything went away. It was a miracle. It was amazing.
Was the
And I
bracelet
wanted
by
to
any
point out,
chance? I was just going to ask, was the bracelet by any chance like a family heirloom or anything like that, or
nope,
just
it
random?
was a cheap little bracelet because I
Wow.
like the bling bling and I like the width of it.
Yeah. And the demons
And
still attached to that object, which they can do.
yes, I've learned a lot about that. I'm
Mhm.
very careful now. I know better. So I do want you to understand when you're doing the cleansing, when you are seeing the spirit, and you better believe me, if they've used you, you can see the spirit. You can hear God's voice. They wouldn't be using you otherwise. So it's just a matter of stepping in and practicing it. You will get it. Trust me. But I wanted you to see, understand, or hear all of your senses that I had going on that you can have in the spirit. So I knew that I was in the room. I was laying on the floor. Lights were on. There were groups of people here and there talking, praying. I knew who was in front of me. I knew that this thing was clawing me, tearing my organs out. I was feeling it. I was smelling it. I also smelled the dungeon that those clones were in, the wetness in that dungeon, the smell, and I felt their pain. Like all of those emotions right there together.
Yeah.
So I have a picture of it somewhere. I didn't send it to you, but
Yeah.
I felt like I was on top of the world. You know, every time you go through a
Oh.
deliverance like this, you go like, okay,
Yeah.
I'm done. I'm done. This was it. This gotta be it.
You do feel like that, don't you? You're like, I can't get any better than this. This is like amazing. And then it's like, actually, there's another layer that's going to come up soon, but enjoy it. Enjoy it for
Exactly.
now.
Surprised. And okay, oh, I'm done. It's gotta be it.
Wow.
Yeah. So
So I just
next morning,
with the clones, were you saying that the 2 dozen, were they all your clones, or were there like a mix of
oh,
clones together?
oh, sorry. The 2 dozen men were standing around me. There were three
Oh,
dozen I'm sorry, there were three clones, 2 dozen men, and
that's
then
what I
three clones. But yes, I definitely had more clones. And there was a clone that was purchased. One of the oligarchs purchased one of the clones, and she was well off. They lived in this very fancy apartment in the middle of Moscow. She would be his right hand business partner, uh, and of course used in bed and so on. But I
Mm,
was shocked when I saw the way she's living. I was shocked to see that she actually had an apartment across his apartment,
yeah,
penthouse. So
yeah.
I'm like,
They're
let me
like, but
see
they're
your
living a human
apartment.
life, right? Like it's bizarre.
Well, no, it wasn't. So I'm following her. God is letting me see what the way she's living. And, I open the beautiful door to her apartment. I see this beautiful view to the city. Like there's a window. And then I look to the left and there's a beautiful desk with all the paperwork. She's like supposed to be his right hand businessman woman. Look to the left, look to the right. Like there's nothing there. It's a closet. He took a closet. Like she doesn't need to eat. She doesn't need to
Of
use the
course.
bathroom. She doesn't need a bed. It looks like whoever's passing in the hallway, it will look like she's got a fancy apartment with beautiful curtains, window. But then when you look inside, like, oh no, that's like a janitor's closet.
Oh wow.
Okay.
Incredible.
So going back to the next morning after this deliverance, after I thought I was good, I I get out of bed and this big plop comes out of me of the black goo. And
Mm,
I'm so stunned. I'm so shocked. I don't know what to do. Not my time of the month. The bathroom is right there, and I cannot move because I'm just blown away with
wow.
how did this come out? But so the clones were tied to the black goo.
So linked to
Okay,
that. Wow. And
somebody.
I just the clones is really coming up for a lot of survivors at the moment. So I feel like because we're healing through it, like multiple survivors are beginning to be able to see it in their system. And I'll just add a few things that they've been finding that support exactly what Lyra has been saying, because it can be a little bit of a like overwhelming topic, I think, when people first hear it. But clones are often used like in childhood as covers for training as well, so they can swap children in and out of families and have, you know, the real child or have a clone in there at different times, so it never gets picked up that the child's missing for like several months doing things or doing jobs. So used for training. And then, like Lyra was saying, they can be used for trafficking. So it's like, well, why have one child? Why have one teenager or one adult that you can traffic when you can have so many more and be making the money that way? And there's in relation to the black goo, kind of connecting the clones and the real human together, what the cults will do is they'll actually use the clones at times to torture the real person as well. So by affecting and shocking or, you know, training the clone, it actually comes through. It's like you've got some sort of awareness. It's not going to be complete in most cases, but it's like your body, your mind and your soul starts suffering as if you're going through some sort of programming or training. But, you know, before you realize you're a survivor and you're going through the deliverance and healing process, you don't understand. It's just like, what is going on? So sometimes the clones can be used in that way too. And then finally, they are involved in a lot of the high witchcraft. So like Lyra was saying, how each clone had like special training and gifts, which we know are demonic attachments in these kind of groups. That clone will be kind of combined with the human to give them together like extra witchcraft powers, so extra astral projecting, extra abilities to hurt and to manipulate and control, etc., over long distances, and do all their cursing and witchcraft ways. So yeah, that clones are very, very common. Like I know years ago when I was just starting to remember, I was like, yeah, I don't think anything like that has, you know, been around me or the survivors I've been speaking to. And the last 6 months, we've all deprogrammed the same kind of things. So very common. And I think people are gonna start healing through it because Jesus is exposing it and showing it to us now as well.
Yeah.
So thank you for sharing.
Good. There was a heavy question that I got with this. Well, first, I think the black goo, yeah, with the clones too, but then it's also with the technology,
Yeah.
like that Python, you know, with the cybernetics story. Oh, and
Yeah.
yeah, one of the hardest questions that I got through during this whole journey with the clones. I know my daughter has been cloned. We've been used twice in different facilities, both her and me at the same time. Like in the morning, I'll get up in pain. And she has been one of her clones is somebody who takes care of, she's a nurse, takes care of the actual soldiers. But I met one of her clones in an elevator in the spirit. And God showed me as I'm going in the elevator and like, look, there's your daughter. But I knew that my daughter has passed. And Jesus said, like, how would you react if you know your physical daughter has passed and you have run into their clone? How would you react? And I still don't have anything there.
That
I
would be
can't,
so tough.
but this is a reality. It's the reality that is coming. And we cannot ignore it. We shouldn't. It will be eventually your conversation with your children and grandchildren. Like when their child passes, what do you do? Because like I said, they can create clones now from synthetic embryos. Like, I don't know what to say.
The things that they can do, and it's just going so fast now as well, isn't it? Like
The cyborg, we talked about the super soldiers, which is quite a bit of humanity with a great deal of technology, right? And this is cyborgs more would be like if you think of the Terminator. All right. So this would be an individual who relies extensively on technology devices, artifacts to function. So if you're thinking, like, okay, they created a great cyborg, which there's a picture of a beautiful girl, but her entire body is a robot. And that was, I had well over 150 parts like that. I'll talk about it in a second.
Wow.
So, and then
So
they can
many.
download
That's so
your,
many parts like that as well, right?
yeah. So, and let me also add to it golem. I don't know if you're familiar with this word. It is pretty ancient term that the Hebrews would use in their folklore. It's an artificial human being who's brought to life by ritual incantations. I cannot say that word. And
Spells,
sequences of
basically.
Hebrew letters.
Yeah.
Yep,
Wow.
it's just pure witchcraft. So you're taking that, well, let's say he's made out of dough. Okay, he's made out of cement, out of stone. No, not out of stone, but something a bit more pliable. And according to the legends and folklore, they can do enough witchcraft, and then they'll have the spirit come into them and use them. The thing can actually move. Okay, talk for sure.
Yeah.
Okay. So this is like the codes that they were writing. They were doing the same thing, that they've been doing this for ages. So the cyborg would be the same thing. They're creating a body, but it could be, in my particular case here, it would be just a lot of metal.
Yeah.
So this was one of the parts. So remember, golem, cyborgs, and tears, same. They're going to be taken out. This was one of the first sessions that I've gone through by myself. I was listening to a long prayer, and as the prayer was, I couldn't pray the prayers myself. I had to hear the prayers because I couldn't speak them out. I was being choked in the spirit. So as this prayer was being prayed, I would agree with it, agreed with it. One of the first things that came out, not the python spirit, but it was this huge water snake, and
Wow.
it was ridiculous long. It kept going and going and going and going. And someone said I bet it was as the length of your intestines. I'm like, okay, because they're using intestines too. But this was attached to the water spirits, the water world that they've attached me to. And I don't remember the name. I'm sorry. There's a specific name for this thing. I got so scared. I asked for the angels to come in, and the angels like rolled up their sleeves and they were pulling it just like you would like the fishing net, pulling in. They were
Wow.
just pulling and pulling and pulling it. And I'm feeling like my jaw was getting bigger and bigger because I'm feeling it coming out, and I'm screaming in my head. I couldn't do it from my mouth. And it's just coming and coming. And when they came out, I'm like, great, thank you.
It's just like
And
something that have been
the
inside of us all that time, right? Like,
disgusting, but I was so happy. I'm like, yes, like I
yeah,
said, every time something like
the
this happens,
release.
you're great. But it kept coming. So I'm on the floor now because like I couldn't believe what I just saw and what I just felt. I'm laying on the floor, and there's that um, golden snake that is coming out of my vagina, just crawling out. And again, I'm feeling and I'm seeing it in the spirit. Like, I'm going crazy in the head, but that's the one where the two trees, the tree of death and the tree of life
Like,
in the Kabbalah tree. So yeah, the tree of death was also, of course, programmed into me. And when that came out, I just laid there, just stunned. I'm like,
wow.
that's ridiculous. So the prayer is still going on, and then I see I'm over the Mediterranean Sea, and I see something like huge, very yucky octopus-looking creature, and the angels were pulling it out in the nets, just pulling it out, and they kind of stopped so I could see what just came out of me. And this thing, it was between Medusa and an octopus. I mean, the Medusa principality.
Yeah, so
It was so
Medusa's
gross.
the one with all the snakes as hair, right?
Uh-huh.
So yeah, a
Mhm.
serpentine
Right. So it was,
goddess.
yes, and the octopus. It was another water
Yeah.
spirit, more than a spirit. And she's looking at me and she's saying, I was the one who took your first two children, or I had
Mm.
three miscarriages. She's like,
Oh,
I took them. And when I did the background change on this check on this mythology creature, like she took two of her babies were killed. So now she's taking kids out away from children, from mothers as much as she can. Like that's her job that she's doing now in the world. Like, but I'm like, you're not coming back. You're out of me. That's it. You're done.
Yeah.
And like that's three in a row within 10 minutes, huge ones, which I felt, sensed them. And I'm just laying like I really feel like I gotta catch my breath. You're gonna be okay. And then I feel uh, my liver being tugged on by these huge claws. And I'm like this, looking over, and it's this evil eyes that were staring at me. But the rest of the body was gorgeous, gorgeous dress, beautiful hair, white crown, just diamonds, everything. It's like the Snow Queen or the Queen of Heaven. And
Yeah.
she's looking at me with this evil eyes straight into my eyes. She's like,
Wow.
"No, you are mine. You're not, I'm not leaving you." I'm like, "You are leaving me. I am not yours. My body is not yours. You are leaving me." So those were
Okay.
the first ones that came out. I mean, there was the Leviathan, and then there was those. After they came out, that's when the other parts start coming out. And in the several weeks later, Jesus, I would have this regime, if you will. I would work out, I would sing, dance with the flags, and then I would start praying, do some reading, pray, and then wait on the Lord. That was just my thing. It took over an hour. That's what I did several times a week. And as I'm sitting there waiting on my knees, waiting on the Lord, I see Jesus appear to me on his throne. And then my workout area had just glass mirrors on the entire wall. And he said, sit down right here in front of the mirror. I'm going to show you the five parts, the five things that he did to you. And this was before I really knew much. I was listening to testimonies, but I didn't know much. So I'm like, okay, I trust you. I know you. I
Yeah.
know you. He also knows in the past when I would practice do deliverance on myself, like deliverance is a way of life. So I never dared to look at myself in the mirror because of all the videos and what you hear, like, oh, this is going to be, crazy thing coming out of you. So I never did that. But he told me, Jesus said, look at yourself in the mirror. So I'm looking, and all of a sudden I turned like almost into a little ball, like crying, sad, lonely. That's how I look in the mirror. And then I see a girl. There's an image of a playground, some houses in Russia, Moscow. So I see a young lady clone sitting on a bench. She's maybe not even 20. And Jesus and I walk up to her and we bring her the bread of life and the living water. We offer it to her and she just flings her hands like, no, get away from me. She was so angry, so angry. And we sat next to her on the bench and I said, like, who are you? She said, like Diana or Delilah. I wasn't paying attention to the names at that time. So Diana or Delilah, which is like the hunter
Huntress.
um, for
Yeah.
the soul. Yeah. And I asked her, where are your weapons? And she said, I am the weapon. And I'm like,
Wow.
okay. And I asked the Lord to show me what it was. And what I saw her job was, I'm sorry, she would take men, she had an apartment, two apartments actually, in one of those buildings. It looked just like your typical neighborhood in USSR. Okay. And she was the captor, two parts like that. Captors who gained victims' trust until the handler showed up. Okay.
Wow.
And this would be when you're getting your healing, you have to flip this over to the other side. It would be the exhorter, the encourager. So what you did, the evil thing that you did, now you're going to be exhorting other, building them up. But here she was calming them down. They would bring the man into one of those apartments. She would calm them down, do whatever she needed to do in bed, and then the handlers would come in when the guy would fall asleep, and they would take him out to do
Wow.
whatever. And then she would go to the next room, and she had another man there, and she would. That's all what she knew. That's all what that
Yeah.
particular clone, Diana or Delilah part knew. That was it. And I looked at Jesus and I looked at her, I looked at myself in the mirror, and then I walked out. Like, this is exactly why I felt this loneliness, this emptiness, this I couldn't click with anything or anyone. She wasn't supposed to click with anyone. She wasn't supposed to have anybody or trust anyone. She was just used over and over and over again. I'm like, Jesus, this is too much. This explains so much of me. I don't want to do this anymore. He's like, no, come back, come back. when I came back, we started testifying to her how much Jesus loved her, how much Jesus loved that part, that he never left her. He's there for her. And as we were talking, there was a black cord coming out of her that was kind of connected to me physically. And Jesus took his hands and melted her right into him.
What was it? A
And then just
black what? A
cord, like a black cord.
cord. Cord. Yes, got you.
That that was another thing that I saw in the hospital. Yeah, I I there was a huge black cord, like a black snake coming out of my gut. And an angel came and he chopped it off, cut it all off with a sword. But then I saw all of these laser beams coming out of it, going right into Moscow. I'm like, wait, if you cut it off, I want all of it cut off. And Jesus looked at me and he's like, no, we're going to turn the bad and the evil into good. I'm like, okay, I trust you. And that's when all this stuff started happening. But he showed me that my parts were all of them, and there was just dozens of them, all went to Kremlin. And if you look at the news right now, Transnistria is actually kind of like behind Moscow. They're just waiting for Moscow to come and take it, yeah, be over them. Anyhow, I digress. Sorry. Jesus sits me down, and then he shows me another part. And this part is I see a man, his name is Michael. He's whining and dining the ladies, again, putting them to sleep, calming them down. He's a guy, so he's got more than one girl. When they're in bed, when they're asleep, that's when the handlers come in and they take the ladies out. And again, now they've got the ladies available to them. Exactly what they did with me, they can do whatever with her. We gave him the water, the bread of life. He took it all. And then he looked at his cell phone and he said, wait, I need you to help somebody else, because he knew that we were there to help him, to take him out. And he's like, and just and I looked at each other and we said, oh yeah, that's the girl that we just took out. We helped her. Like, you don't need to worry about
Wow.
her. Just hugged him and he melted right into him. So I got my soul part like that from that. The
So,
next thing that
so with
Jesus
those,
showed me
just
was,
so with those, just to clarify, that those ones were soul parts of yours that had been put into clones. Is that right?
yes,
Yeah.
total tears, lab created
Yeah.
captors. I call them captors. Exhorter, the one gift that I do have is exhorting other people, building them up, and they totally played on that.
Yeah.
Just made me angry. The next part, you will have some images of that beautiful girl who has that robotic body.
Uh-huh.
So again, I'm sitting in front of the mirror, and I know why Jesus put me in front of the mirror, because for me to learn and understand how the evil parts, principalities that are in us, they actually change our appearance. The parts like that girl I was so alone. This guy, Michael, he was all just very easygoing, very confident. And that's exactly how I looked in the mirror. It was incredible. So now this next part, I'm looking at myself and all of a sudden I get like, I'm invincible, just invincible. I don't care about anything. I can plow through anything. I'm like, what is that, Jesus? And then I see I'm in the middle of a jungle in South America. I I see myself totally me looking, but it's like a Terminator. She's dressed in black military clothing, tight military clothing. She's a little thing, 5'2", and just looks so innocent, beautiful and innocent. We give her the bread of life, living water, and she's just shoving it all down. I'm like, what's your name? And she says, I'm 147. I'm like, and then she immediately follows through with, I am sold on the black market. And she said, the people who purchased me are the ones who were willing to invest in this technology. I'm
Wow.
like, okay, like, what are your weapons? And then God shows me there's a helicopter that's coming out, some kind of drug dealer. The drug dealer, the guy whoever's in charge, gets out of the helicopter. His body men are behind him, but he's walking towards me, this young girl. Like, what are you doing in the middle of the jungle? Just like trying to help her. And as she's walking towards her, she immediately takes her mouth and she bites into him. And when she bites into him, her teeth open up and deadly acid comes out of her teeth. So every time it's by every bite that she takes, the acid coming out of her body was full of this acid, dissolvent acid. His body began to dissolve to the point like she kept eating him and eating him and eating him until he dissolved, and then she dissolves, her body machine dissolves with it to the point the guy was a little too big, so there was a plop of just flesh that you couldn't tell whether it was an animal or what it was. So they had enough acid in that body to just make somebody disappear without a trace. So
Wow.
I call them disposable assassins.
Yeah.
I'm
That's
like,
just nuts, right? Like a clean, imagine that as like a cleanup job just to like get rid of somebody that they
yeah.
don't want around anymore.
I'm like, geez, I haven't even seen that on TV. What in the heck?
Mm.
And he shows me the lab. I'm like, we got to do this 147. We got to do something about this. And he shows me the lab in Moscow. There was a pile of me looking robots on the floor, and there was a pile of them stacked against the wall. So there was already plenty of them pre-made and
Wow.
maybe sold. And then Jesus walks me to a computer station and he shows me a little basket full of my hair that they cut off in the hospital. And he said, like, see, your tiny little piece of hair, they put it right on top of that um, assassin, disposable assassin, that machine, and it powers them up.
Wow.
And he also showed me number 50 in Las Vegas. She took out a big old lady. But what they would do, whoever is purchasing one of these assassins, they're given something to follow the person to collect data from the individual who needs to be killed. So this machine knows who to go after. Once they have enough data that they've collected, they insert it into that machine right here, and then they put the hair in. As soon as it's ready to go, whoever they want to kill, the purchaser who purchased this thing puts it right here, and then it just goes and does its thing and dissolves. And I looked at Jesus, and I'm like,
Wow.
all these years, I would have this crazy weird diet where I couldn't eat. I was against acid, anything acidic, sugar,
Really?
meat, coffee. Like I'm like a cuckoo. That's where it came
Now it makes
from.
sense. Wow.
Yep. And then there were times periodically where I would weep uncontrollably and I would call everybody in my family. I would text asking like, are you okay? Are you okay? Are you okay? I'm like, I know something is happening to someone. After this, it all stopped. After Jesus took the hair down, he melted all the hair into him. They couldn't use all these avatars anymore, so I had peace. I've never had that feeling again. Where like I would feel every time that piece, that machine died, or my essence died, I would
Yes,
feel
it's
it
fine. Yeah,
a
so
lot.
you still had some experience of it, even though it was away from you.
Oh,
Wow.
a lot, not just some, but totally, totally. And the sad part is when you don't know what is bothering you, you can go crazy in the head almost. Like,
Yes.
how can I help somebody when I feel like they're dying? I need to be there and they're a loved one. That's how it feels. Somebody very, very close to me. And just this longing. A lot of this is the longing that because you're longing for your pieces, you're longing for your essence. That's the hard part.
Mm.
Okay.
Well said. Well said. It's like that feeling of something being missing, but you just don't know what it is.
So let me talk about the chimera because I didn't mention that, the hybrids. Okay. Um, all right, let's talk about the chimera. So I had a couple of chimeras, hybrids, which are half animal or different animals. And again, I'm sitting in front of the mirror and Jesus shows me in the water. I'm looking at myself like I'm confused, like what is going on? These beautiful fins and hair and fins, just I'm mesmerized. It's so glamorous and beautiful. And then all of a sudden, there's a picture. These huge teeth, like piranha teeth, bite me. Jump back. I'm like, what in the world? And I asked you, just like, what part is this? I asked her, it's Laura. Her name is Laura. I'm like, what is your job? And he said, when somebody's lost in the sea, in the river, my job is to take it, kill it, and dedicate the soul to the water gods. So basically, what the Soviets did, they also thought about the principalities who they're working with. They're going to continue giving them souls. So
And
this
feeding
avatar, this
them.
this chimera, was doing just that. And when
Wow.
I prayed for God to like, hey, take care of this, what he did was he actually took it to heaven. It wasn't evil anymore, but he took it to heaven and it's still there, including the lykens. I had lykens, also 5 of them. It's just like a wolf type creature.
Mm.
He's also in heaven. Jesus did not take him. I did wanted to tell you what I've learned through this experience because I did not go through anyone. Yes, like Amanda Bias, I've used prayers from people. I would listen to prayers, but I would listen to the Holy Spirit first. But on top of it, I would do the singing, the worshiping, the dancing in the Lord. Like, and it's the verse. Okay. And I have to, there's an image that I did. It's a chalk wall drawing that I did of a girl praising the Lord. And it says, enter his gates with thanksgiving and his courts with praise. Give
Oh,
thanks to him and praise his name. Psalm 104.
amen.
So it's the law. You can't do anything about all of this detaching yourself from anything because without this part, it's all legal matters, as you know. They did this legally, they stole your soul part, they connected you to the principalities with their legal rights, whether you were drugged and said the oaths, you know how it goes. So you have to take all this to the courts. But in order to get to the courts and not hear other voices, you only want the Holy Spirit, you have to start praising the Lord. Acknowledge who he is, acknowledge who you are in him. And then you can petition, you can bring up, hey, I've got this evil document against me. Please write in your new one for me. But you also have to remember this part. There's no way anybody's going to go to court in your cleaning clothes. So take the time,
I
repent,
love it.
prepare your heart, praise the Lord, know who you are, and then get going with your healing process.
No, I love it. And what
Wow.
it is such a beautiful picture. Thank you so much for sharing it with us. And I think that is such a good place to finish because it is so important. And I think, as I remember in the early days, it was hard at times, to go into prayer and parts work time and really praise the Lord and really say thank you because, as a survivor, you can be dealing with feeling very abused, very like, why has this happened to me? Like in real victim mode. And absolutely, you need to work through those feelings and, journal about them and they'll come out in prayer. But as you continue healing, and you can start moving into like what Lyra is talking about and having worship and praise of God, you're going to find how rapidly that just heals you and it connects you to it connects you to the true character of God, of his spirit, so he can actually heal you more efficiently as well. So yeah, thank you so much for courageously sharing your testimony and just really vulnerably explaining how it was to find those parts and heal through them, because you're like years ahead of like where a number of survivors are remembering at this stage. And I know that just hearing your testimony like really supports the work that everyone's doing, and we're all healing together, we're all praying together. Jesus is delivering us all. So thank you so much, Lyra. God bless you.
You too. Thank you.